Number 10.
Number 10 on my list, I have Bases Loaded for the regular Nintendo. Came out in 1988, so I was quite young, but I was into sports and baseball at that time. I played baseball for a while, so it was right up my alley with the game. It's really nostalgic for me, because it was one of the Nintendo games that I would pull an all-nighter with my buddy. And, just the overall graphics for a regular Nintendo baseball game are pretty good. You have your classic characters like Webb, who can just crank home runs like crazy. Your pitching style, if you can do starting out going from the top to the bottom and diagonal all sorts, you can beam the batters. It was pretty good for a first baseball game. It's got that classic appeal for me. Other than that, not really all that great of a game, but nostalgic.
Number 9.
One of the reasons why I got Rock Band on there is it took Guitar Hero and it brought it to that next level by adding other instruments like the bass it had bass and Guitar Hero, but drums and microphone for singing. That kind of changed the whole game for that genre, really. Again, it's another sort of nostalgic one for coming out in 2007, 10 years ago. It's about 10 years ago. It's a good game on its own. I don't know if I would have enjoyed it as much because I have friends that spent a lot of money downloading all the songs for it, which is something I probably wouldn't have done. But from that aspect, it's a fantastic game. Probably my favorite are the drums. We used to get together and have parties, drinking, playing Rock Band all night. It's a pretty good time. It's another really nostalgic game for me, and I think it's still standing strong. Recently coming out with the new Rock Band, also the new Guitar Hero, which I think it's 5 years in between the last game. The fact that people still want to play it, like even now I have the drum set for Rock Band for the 360, so quite good.
Number 8.
Fantastic shooting game. Side-scrolling, sort of top-scrolling as well on certain levels. Incredibly difficult, but very easy for a young kid to play. Because, it came out in 87. I wasn't very old in 87. Not much was done with shooters. You could get power-ups in it, like spread fire and laser and rapid fire and stuff like that. Without Contra, I don't know if you would have a lot of first-person shooters. Back in the 80s, I guess they really didn't have a whole lot of misconstrued view on violent video games at that time. Maybe with the Reagan era they did, but again, nostalgic value for it. I used to sneak into one of the buildings that my buddy went to for church, and we used to play all sorts of Nintendo games. Contra was one of them, always one of the first choices. Then you got Super Contra after that and stuff like that, but the first Contra is classic side-scrolling shooter. What more can be said? The graphics, the controls are super easy. Yeah, I think it deserves that spot. It's a pretty good game.
Number 7.
Modern Warfare 2. Modern Warfare 1 was good, but 2 was way better. It took everything from 1 and just made it 10 times better. It's a game that still holds replay value to this day. If you took it and you hopped online, I'm sure there would be people playing it. Good graphic-wise, for being old, I guess. It's just the fact that it's an online first-person shooter. Again, the replay value on it. A couple of us in the basement even still play it. Every once in a while we'll get together and play it. One of the guys here, Ross, is big on it. He's fantastic at that game. Yeah, it's just a really good group game. You can do split screen. Split screen's fantastic. that one really paved the way for the Call of Duty series. I mean, 1 was good, but 2 really set the bar for it. So without 2, you might not have Black Ops, Black Ops 2, Black Ops 3, yada yada yada.
Number 6.
Elder Scrolls 4: Oblivion. Came out in 2006 for the 360. I think it was briefly on the Xbox, the regular Xbox. The lore behind those games are fantastic. One of the first RPGs I've played. I was never really into RPGs at that time. I never played any of the other ones, like Arenas or Morrowind. But one of my roommates had Oblivion, and I decided to give it a shot, and I loved it. It's a great, very open game. It's one of the first games I really played all the way through as well. Really good game. Never played the other ones, but like the ones prior to it. But Oblivion is fantastic.
Number 5.
Final Fantasy Tactics took the Final Fantasy RPG series into a direction of like a strategy, almost tabletop type game, which was really different. It still had all the classic characters in it from the previous Final Fantasies, but it kind of made it a little newer, a little more of a different story to it. Again, it's another nostalgic one that I had for the PS1. It took Final Fantasy to a whole new direction of genre of the game. It's still an RPG, considered an RPG, but it's more of a strategy-based tabletop game, I guess. You move your characters in square forms on a map, and you encounter enemies and whatnot. Move your way through like a trail map, I guess it would be. It's a different type of RPG.
Number 4.
Number 4 on my list came out just last year. It's Fallout 4. I tried playing Fallout 3. I didn't really get into it. A lot of my friends said, well, if you like Oblivion and other Bethesda games, you'll like Fallout 3. I tried it. Wasn't my cup of tea. Fallout 4 came out, and I bought it. I was like, well, you know what? I'll give Fallout 4 a shot. Different than Fallout 3. I mean, the graphics are obviously way better. It's another immense open world game. A lot of customization you can do in the RPG. It has power armor, which you can customize that. You can get different paint jobs for it. It's got multiple different storylines in the quest. It's like the main quest itself. You can choose different paths to go down. I think there's like 3 or 4 different outcomes to the main story that you can do. All the little side quests, again, are typical RPG, which are good grinding. You get a lot more enjoyment out of it, sinking time into a console game like that, as opposed to other RPGs, not so much. But Fallout 4 was the one to bring me into the Fallout. I never played New Vegas or any of the other ones, but 3 didn't really do it, but 4 pulled me in. It was, I still have it. I still play it from time to time. There's still a lot of side quests that I haven't done. So, and I played it I got it when it came out. I've been playing it for a year, so there's a lot of stuff to do in it. The main quest having multiple different outcomes really kind of sets the bar high for it as well. A lot of replay value in it. You could go back and make another character and go a different way with it. So it's another really good game.
Number 3.
Not just the 2011 version, but also the newly remastered version, which I just bought. I sunk a lot of time into. It's way more open than Oblivion. It's the next game after Oblivion. The graphics in 2011 were fantastic, even now more so on the remaster. I haven't experienced the mods yet, as I don't have internet, but hopefully I will soon. I feel like that would add a whole new part of that game that I have never experienced. It's another immense open world game with a lot of customization, and it still kind of sticks true to that, very simple RPG though. But I mean, you can customize your character right down to like the bridge of the nose, the ears, the eyes, everything. There's 2 possible outcomes to the main storyline, I think, but there is a ton of side quests in that game. You could easily sink a whole year into that game and still enjoy it years later. It's another very high replay value. It's one of those games where if you play it for a while and you stop and you pick it up again in a couple of months, it's like it's brand new. It's been a while since I played it, but again, it still draws me in, still draws my attention, and I can still sink a lot of time into it without getting bored.
Number 2.
Came out in 1991 for the regular Nintendo. Tecmo Super Bowl. It's really strange putting a regular Nintendo game on my top 2, but it has very, very high nostalgia value for me. It's one of the first football games for regular Nintendo. Well, probably not one of the first, but one of the first major ones. It had all the teams, the actual teams from the NFL, not just like, New Orleans what? It actually had the Saints and the Packers and all those from 1991, as well as the players. I mean, you could play as Bo Jackson, which was godlike in that game. I remember pulling all-nighters with that game as well, just binging on Coca-Cola and playing Season on that, because you couldn't save it, so you had to play it continuously through. Otherwise, if you shut the Nintendo off, you would lose all your progress. So, my buddies and I would just sit down and play that like season after season for the whole night. Just the graphics on it aren't spectacular, but they're good enough for a football game. And they had cutaway scenes, like if you scored a touchdown, it would cut away to the graphic. If you caught a touchdown pass, it would show you running into the end zone and spiking the ball or getting hoisted up by your teammate. The songs are catchy. The secret menu at the beginning where you can view the tracks and the sound listings, that's good. It's a really good regular Nintendo sports game. Thinking back, I probably should have put some hockey games on here too, but
Number 1.
Came out in 1994 for the Super Nintendo. Final Fantasy VI, otherwise known as Final Fantasy III. Easily my favorite Final Fantasy game. Again, very, very nostalgic for me. I would put a lot of time into that game. There's something about it that's just, the graphics are amazing for a Super Nintendo game. It's, again, another gigantic open world game for that time frame. The story, with Kefka being the bad guy. Kefka is a fantastic bad guy. Still to this day, there are people that have his laugh as their ringtone. I mean, which shows you how iconic that game is. The soundtrack to it, another iconic thing. You could hear the fight music and you'd be like, oh, that's Final Fantasy. Not just for Final Fantasy 3, but all Final Fantasy games. But that one had a more, I don't want to say diverse, but a more recognizable soundtrack to it. Again, coming out in 94, you could go back and play it now and you would still enjoy it. It's just, to me, that's the definitive Final Fantasy game. Final Fantasy 2 on the regular Nintendo was good, but I don't know, for me, Final Fantasy 3 is just, it really takes the cake as my favorite game, because I could sit down and play it tomorrow and enjoy it just as much as I did. Finding that game is hard and quite expensive for a Super Nintendo game. It's pretty iconic, and I think a lot of people would agree that it's worthy of my number 1. So that was my top 10. I hope you agree with some of them. If you don't, maybe leave a comment. I'll check them and see what you have to say. But thanks for watching. Bye.